This is the, I'm going to call to order the business meeting of the session. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I need an approval for the agenda for this evening.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Ms. Matthews?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Any discussion? Mr. Frazier?
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Kopus?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes. Next, we have the approval of the minutes. I believe everybody has had a chance to read those. I need a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Sprague. Thank you, Mrs. Matthews. Discussion? Mr. Frazier?
Dr. Kopus?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
No city council. No public participation. Mr. Holbrook?
Yes, President Baker. Once again tonight, I want to focus my comments on the various activities and events that are going on in this district that I continue to beat a dead horse, but it continually amazes me to see our kids out in a variety of different arenas. Just over the past 2 weeks, everything from attending Civics Day and watching our young people and the students from Baden get together for not only a mock school board meeting, but a city council meeting. And some of the ideas that our students come up with are really creative and amazing. We've had FC Cincinnati visiting Crawford Woods in a variety of situations and participating a little bit in assistance in our phys ed classes. I got the opportunity last Friday night to do double duty. I got to go see the show choir and the varsity basketball game at Hamilton High School. It was both the same night, and great performance by the boys basketball team that night, and our show choir put on quite an outstanding performance in the Home of the Holidays presentation. We have wrestling, we have swimming and diving. Next week, Linden's elementary choir is coming to central office to perform for us. There's just such a plethora of opportunity, not for kids, but it's great to see kids getting enthused in those extracurricular activities. And I think that that's really important to continue to emphasize. We talk all the time about test scores, and they are important, but we also know kids are engaged with a lot of these activities, and they're going to perform better and at a higher level if we get them engaged in the school community. And I think this district does that as well as any district that I've seen. And it doesn't matter what the genre is. It doesn't matter if it's athletics, fine arts, if you have more of a computer interest, there's a variety of different clubs and activities. And, that's a compliment to this board for recognizing that and supporting those activities through the years. And it's a compliment to our teaching staff as well as our coaches for stepping up. You have to have the personnel that's willing to do those things. And so it always makes me feel really good when I see our kids out there, not only in the community, but doing things of meaning. And so, I want to focus in on that this evening. Throughout the next 7 or 8 days, I started listing the number of activities that's going on between now and the holidays. And it got to a point I would be speaking for the next 10 or 15 minutes. But I encourage anyone that has an opportunity, check our website, find a performance or something, and go see our kids out in action, because they truly are amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Holbrook, I echo that. Having been at Civic Day, I think we're in pretty good hands with the kids that have coming up and going to be taking over at some point, and also being able to share the excitement of the signing of the football players. That was, and the grade point averages of these kids is amazing. So kudos to the district. Okay. Next on the agenda is a recommendation for an MOU with the superintendent's contract. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Mr. Frazier?
Mrs. Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Sprague,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Davidson,
Yes.
Dr. Kopus.
Yes.
Okay. Next, we have, do have a letter of retirement from the superintendent, Mr. Holbrook, stating that he will indeed retire as of, I believe, August 10th. So I need a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Any discussion? Mr. Frazier?
Mr. Sprague,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Davidson,
Yes.
Dr. Kopus,
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you're not, well, I just have to make a comment, Mike, and I know that you're going to be here for the next, until August, but it truly has been a pleasure working with you and what you've done for this district, and I just feel like I needed to say that and appreciate all the work.
I appreciate that. It's going to be difficult after 37 years, but it's time for me to do something different from a lifestyle standpoint. I will say this is my one and only superintendency. It's been an honor of a lifetime, and I appreciate all the support from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, we have a first read on the fall policy updates.
Yes, we met with Neola back, I don't know, maybe a month ago, and these are recommended changes to policy. Most of those are embedded in changes in law. There is such a huge volume of it. Whenever there's a large volume of readings such as this, we give the board a first reading. There's no vote tonight on that. We'll come back with a recommendation at the next business meeting on actually approving those. But the volume's great, and it's going to take time to go through and read all of those. So we try to give time for board members to do that. But you can see there's in excess, I think, of 20 different amendments to policy, and a lot of that's just little cleanup things that doesn't substantially change the meaning of those policies.
Yeah.
And there's a few that do. And a lot of that's embedded in changes in state law.
And thank you for giving us some additional time to review all
And,
those. so
and
that's-
honestly, I believe that meeting took place. I think Mr. Frazier and Ms. Blevins said in that. I think that may have been when I had COVID. And so those two sat in the meeting, and we got together and went through all of those. But that's the reason for the volume all at one time.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have our district calendars. This is the second read, and we'll need an approval. It's recommended that we approve the district calendars for 2025, 26, 27 as presented. I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Sprague. Any discussion?
Just a question, what's our procedure, how do we go about coming up with a calendar?
That's something that's done in collaboration with HCTA, and I know Mr. Wright meets with them, and we actually have various options that we present to them and get their input on that, and we give them the option. It's really not that material of a difference with any administrator. They work X number of days anyway. But we look at that. We look at area districts. One of the things that's been really important to me during my tenure as superintendent is the fact that I think it's really important that the first semester end with the winter recess. So you don't come back and you have 7 or 8 days lingering at the end of the first
Yeah.
semester and start the second semester. To do that and to try to balance the number of student days in that first and second semester can be a little challenging. The other factor in this is, honestly, when does Easter fall, and trying to organize that. And the other thing is state testing. State testing is a big factor in driving a lot of when we start and when we finish as well. So, but it's done in a collaborative manner, and you know, the number of days worked are the number of days worked. When they are, we have some guidelines on that, and we try in most cases to get the school year done prior to that Memorial Day weekend. But what that means on the front end is we're starting earlier, and so and when I first started education, we didn't start until after Labor Day.
Yeah.
Well, so in order to counterbalance that a little bit, because that's a long haul from August 10th or 11th to basically Thanksgiving. So one of the things, because we're starting so much earlier, is that we've incorporated that fall break. And so that at least is a little respite. It may not be the same, but that's something that's, I will say, newer within the last 5 to 10 years. I don't know if it's but that's how it's done.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Frazier?
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Kopus?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Next, we have the Human Resources Agenda. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Sprague.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Matthews. Any discussion?
One question, President Baker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Wright, I have a niece on the Human Resources agenda. Do I need to abstain in voting?
If you go by the guidance that was provided by Bricker Graydon, that would not be an abstention. You would not need to do so. But Mr. Davidson, there is.
I was going to address that. A lot of people, when they watch our meeting, and someone abstains, they want to know, why did you abstain? So I'm putting on the record, my wife is on the agenda for a stipend for having a student teacher, so it's inappropriate for me to vote on it. So I will be abstaining.
Okay, anything else? Mr. Frazier?
Mr. Davidson?
Abstain.
Dr. Kopus?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes. Okay, next, we have the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Any discussion?
I have a question, President Baker, and I think this is a Mr. Frazier question. As I'm looking at that curriculum instruction, I believe in the past on these items, we've had the associated costs listed with them, and I'm looking at just the number one item, field trips. I know they come from the general fund, but, and am I mistaken there? I mean, we used to have the costs there, so we kind of have an idea of what we're spending on these.
This is not something I put together.
Okay.
But
We-
I feel like that's right. Do we normally do that?
We
It's not- it's not
normally
something-
have not put the cost
Oh,
of field
yeah,
trips.
Okay.
We can certainly start doing that, but, that's going to be contingent on the number of hours it takes to get there and get back and the busing and all of that. But Dr. Kopus, that's the one item we haven't put the associated cost with that in the past. Everything else we have, but that's something that can be calculated down to a dollar
I'm
amount
looking
if
at the
you would
business
like.
operations agenda, and the cost is on there.
Yeah,
Okay.
those are on
So
there.
maybe that's what we're thinking of.
Okay, well then I don't want to add to your already busy schedule. If it's listed elsewhere, that's fine.
Any further discussion?
To be clear, I don't think that is listed elsewhere. The field trip costs.
No, not field trip costs, but
okay.
on
Everything.
business operations and
Yeah, the business
the other
operations, the
items.
PI, the general fund, all of those are, but the field trip costs aren't. So that would be a new addition that certainly can be done. That's not an issue doing that. We would just have to do a little rudimentary math to figure it out.
We have all those values, Dr. Kopus, so if you'd like for those to be added, that's an easy addition.
If it's an easy addition,
It
yes,
is.
I would like for it to be added. I'd just like to know what we're spending on that.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Frazier?
Dr. Kopus,
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Sprague,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Davidson.
Yes.
Okay, next, we have finance agenda. Mr. Frazier?
Thank you, President Baker. We have a few items up for your approval this evening. We have the treasurer's report for November. We have the annual appointment to the Lane Library Board. Miss Linda De Benedetto, I hope I said that correctly, Ms. Benedetto is currently serving as a text proctor for the Hamilton City School District. She has taught first and second grade for 35 years in the district. She's also a member of the Hamilton Community Foundation, Reading Foundation Scholarships, and First United Methodist Church committees. And the appointment is a 7-year term, January 1st, 2025 through December 31st of 2031. So that's obviously a significant commitment, and we thank her for applying. We also have the AMVETS donation contract up for your approval. This year, the AMVETS are expected to donate to our ROTC program somewhere around $70,000, a very significant donation. Then we also have the special trust fund on for approval so that I can create the fund to allow those monies to come in. We have a confirming purchase order, and we also have some significant donations up for approval this evening. Sandy DeBicki donated $500 to the Fine Arts Department, and we have two $5,000 donations from the Boosters Club, one to boys basketball and one to boys baseball. Those are my items this evening.
Okay, thank you. Need a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Frazier?
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Kopus?
Yes.
Okay. Our next meeting is a special board retreat meeting. It will be held this coming Tuesday, December 17th, beginning at 5 p.m. 241 High Street, which is also known as Basil's. And I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Meeting is adjourned.